Do you find responsibilities in work, family, and health too overwhelming to handle? Welcome to Health, Wealth, and Relationships, Thriving in the Balancing Act. Join physical therapist and relationship consultant Dr. Gina Williams in building stronger connections, advancing your career, and elevating your overall well-being. Here you'll find practical tips, inspiring stories, and actionable strategies for living a more fulfilling and meaningful life.
Hello, welcome to the podcast. I'm Dr. Gina, owner of Mobility Health Physical Therapy, a physical therapy practice based in Midtown Manhattan, New York. Also, if you live in Manhattan, Brooklyn, or Queens, we can come to your home. You can find more information on mobilityhealthpt.com. Please visit our website. Today's podcast guest is Deborah Donenfeld. Deborah Donenfeld is the owner of Photosynthesis Coaching, a life coach specializing in supporting people in midlife who are starting over. She has been coaching for 13 years and moved into this niche when her own life was turned upside down and she found herself in the position of navigating several big and painful changes all at once. Deborah coaches from the heart and is compassionately helping her clients to work their edge and move through changes with grace. Welcome to the podcast, Deborah. Such a pleasure to have you here.
So nice to be here. Thanks, Gina.
So, Deborah, you specialize in supporting people in midlife who are starting over. What are some common challenges that people face during this stage, and how can you approach these challenges with grace?
Yeah. I find that often for people in midlife, that's when the unexpected changes happen. Of course, change is a constant in all of our lives, right? So we're always changing and we're always facing change. But midlife
Yes.
seems to be a time when we feel like we've sort of settled in. Maybe everything's not perfect, but we have some stability and we might be looking to tweak or make a couple of changes, but we're often caught off guard when the big changes happen. So I think that so when I say that I'm a starting over coach, I feel like in midlife often this happens and we feel like we have to start over. Like my own changes where I went through like 4 different changes at once. I was getting a divorce. I had to move unexpectedly. The financial bottom or fell out of my life in a way that was really shocking. And I had to make some career changes. So any one of those changes could be hard to navigate. But I find that often in midlife, there's a big change that precipitates a lot of other changes that go with it. And it feels like you're starting your whole life over. And so that's why I call myself a starting over coach. And I think that the way, look, it's gonna be hard and you're gonna have a lot of feelings about it. I mean, we do. And
Yes,
to
of course.
navigate it with grace, I think you have to call upon all the tools that you've ever had and ever used to get through anything in your life and ask for help and use your support system and cultivate trust. Cultivate trust that this is building you into the person you are meant to be and that you will get to the other side of it.
Wow, that's very important to have someone you can trust in a time where you feel that things are changing and you're not sure where to go. So you
Yeah, that's right.
mentioned briefly that your own life was turned upside down, leading to you to focus on midlife coaching. Can you share a bit about your personal journey and how it shaped the way you coach others through their transitions?
Yeah, definitely. So my story in a nutshell is that I was getting divorced. My husband and I had decided to divorce, and right at the time that we were going to tell the children, I found out that his business had completely tanked and there was like zero money left in his business account. And we had enough money in our personal account to pay the next mortgage payment, and that was basically it.
Wow.
So that was a huge shock. I had thought that I would stay in our apartment with the children when we divorced, but now clearly we were going to have to sell our apartment. I was earning a living, but I wasn't earning enough to pay for all of us now that he didn't have any other income. So that is sort of what precipitated these. So we sold our apartment, I moved, I uprooted my kids, and we went to a completely different neighborhood quite far away from where they had been. for basically their whole lives.
What a big change for
And
them. Wow.
and then I was sort of spent like 2 years watching the proceeds from our apartment dwindle, trying to cobble it together, still working on my business, doing odd jobs and personal assisting and that kind of thing, looking for full-time work. And it was a really, really scary time. I mean, I was sort of terrified all the time. Like, how am I going to put food on the table? My savings is dwindling. What am I going to do? It was a super, super scary time. And coming out of it, I think that I realized, like, wow, I would have really loved to have a guide. I would have loved to have somebody holding my hand, helping remind me of cheer me on, helping remind me of the things that I said that I wanted to do and hold me accountable and know that I wasn't only relying on myself. And so I just decided to be that person for other people. So that's kind of how my story led me to do this work.
Wow, that's amazing. That's from the heart and with
Yeah.
compassion, like you say, the type of coach you are. How does empathy play a role in your coaching process, especially when someone is dealing with the major life changes or health related changes?
Well, empathy is super important. And the first place to start is with yourself,
Mm.
right? Like if I'm working with somebody who's going through a divorce and they were betrayed by their partner, we're not going to start off with me saying, you need to forgive and accept and have empathy for them. Like
Yes.
you got to feel your feelings and be in it but put the focus on you, right? I'm going to, as much as possible, help them to take the focus, take the lens off of the other person, off of that story of what they did, and put the focus on them and how they're feeling and what this process is like for them, and extend empathy for themselves.
Wow.
Extend empathy for the part of them that's having such a hard time with this and struggling and feeling things so deeply. Bring empathy to that. Then the rest will come. That makes it easier to have empathy for other people later.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. And to have someone to help you through that process it is essential. It's important. So, in your experience, how do areas of health, wealth, and relationships intertwine when it comes to navigating a major life change? Are there common areas where people struggle with the most with balancing all those aspects?
I For me, I really feel strongly that they are all interlinked and maybe all the same. So I feel that there's a very strong link between physical ailments and illness and emotional issues, like that emotions always have a physical component in the body, right? I mean, even if we think about when I get embarrassed, I blush,
Mm.
right? So there I have a feeling of embarrassment and it is manifesting in a physical, I wanted to say sensation, but it's not a sensation. There's a emotional sensation, and then there's a physical aspect to it, right? Physical manifestation of that feeling. And so I sort of expand that to really everything. Like there is some kind of energetic and emotional component to any kind of physical thing that's happening. Now, I'm not saying don't work on the physical, right? Like do your work, go to the chiropractor, go to the physical therapist, go to your doctor, do all the things that you need to do. And at the same time, let's dig in a little bit and see what could the emotional components be that could be contributing factors to what's going on for you. So I'm not sure if that exactly answers the question, but for me, they're very, very intertwined.
Yeah, they are intertwined. And even, having clients through physical therapy, when someone has some physical pain in their body, let's say their knee, and they have some emotional ties to the event that happened, it often prevents the time for recovery.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And sometimes I find even in myself, if I have somebody visiting me, like say somebody from my childhood, and I have sort of not great memories of that childhood. In the days leading up to it and the day when they're there, my back might start to hurt, or
Mm.
my knee might start to hurt, or something else starts to hurt, and then they're gone and it's all gone. Now they didn't do anything and I might get along really well with them now. But there's something in my past that is causing some kind of subconscious feeling that is
That still
manifesting in a
affects
physical
you. Wow.
ailment. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that totally happens.
And I
So,
think that we often will say, like, oh, it's so weird. Like I just had this knee thing come out of nowhere. What's that about? And
And
I find that there's always about something.
yeah,
It can
typically
always,
it's not out of nowhere,
it's
especially if
not
you
out
can
of
see a
nowhere.
pattern and connect it to something else, especially
Yeah.
if you're talking to somebody about, well, this always happens to me and talk about, well, why and
Right.
what's the significance and the connection with that.
Right. Or when was the last time this happened? Do you remember the
Hmm.
last time this happened?
Yeah,
Yeah.
simple question.
And
And then you think about it, it's very similarities between the last time and the current time. And you
exactly.
start to build that connection and then maybe free yourself from tying that pain to that emotion.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
So often self-care when someone's going through these life transitions is something that's neglected. What are some practical strategies that you would recommend for clients to help them maintain a balance and avoid burning out?
Yeah, I think it does go. Look, if you did not have a self-care practice before,
Mm,
it's going to be hard and it's going to be really important to create some now. If you did have a self-care practice before, this is not the time to neglect it, right?
wow, yes.
So, in terms of what I recommend to my clients, it's very individual and based on, what is helpful for them and what they like to do and what they don't like to do. And I personally had a very strong what I call a morning practice leading up to this whole event, which is every morning I write and I meditate. And I sort of clung to that like a religion, like no matter
Mhm.
what is going on, I'm doing this in the morning because I need to be able to get through my day. And I need to be, the writing for me is really powerful and very helpful. It really helps me to process. Some people don't like writing. That's fine. There are plenty of other things that you can do. But
You
for
find
me,
what you
it's,
like.
yeah, you find what helps, right? And I don't mean that, oh, I don't want to write because I'm not comfortable writing. Like sometimes you have to do the thing that's not comfortable. It's finding what, all right, let me push myself to do it and see if it actually works. Like it's an experiment, right? I'm going to try it. I'm going to see. If it doesn't work, then I will drop it, right? If it doesn't help, I'll drop it. So those are things that are really helpful for me. I find that sometimes I work with, I would say women especially, who are real doers. They are action oriented and they are doing all the time. And for them, sometimes the actions that I give them are really much more self care related and like make sure to take a bath,
Mm,
twice this week.
and little things.
Spend 20 minutes a day listening to music. Maybe do a walking meditation. Maybe sitting and meditating is not their thing, but
Mm,
something that helps them to um, disconnect from the rest of the world, from the noise, and go within. I think those are really helpful self-care routines. I mean, some going to yoga. I find even myself, like I've been doing yoga at home, and
mm.
it's not the same as doing it in the studio.
It's not, yes.
It's not. I love it and it certain purposes. But in terms of like I'm distracted. Oh, I see that picture is crooked. I'm going to make a mental note that after class I'm going to fix it. Like it is really important to find the thing that helps you to sort of disconnect and go within.
That's important advice. So a lot of times some people in midlife feel like maybe they're too old or it's too late for them to make big changes. How do you help clients overcome that limiting belief that prevents them from taking the next steps to get to their full potential?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that that may be partially why these big changes happen in midlife, because I think we do get settled into thinking like, well, this is just the way it is, and it's too late for me to change. And then the universe is like, well, here you
Guess what?
go. You thought you do you really think it's too late? Try this. And then you have to, right? You don't really have a choice, and that can be destabilizing and it can also be paralyzing. And if you're in a different situation, which is you want to make a change, but you have this belief that I can't change because it's too late or I'm too
Mm,
old, that also is paralyzing, right? So
yeah.
how do we get past that? And I think one of the things is to uncover those limiting beliefs and acknowledge that it's a limiting belief and do a little digging to find out which part of you is it that believes
Mm,
this? And is there another part of you that knows that that's not true? And
wow.
usually both are in the house,
Mm,
right? But often it's that part that really believes the limiting belief that somehow is driving the bus. And we need to put that part in the passenger seat,
Mm.
safely buckled in, right? We're not going to toss it out the bus. We're not going to, right? We're not going to say, I don't
This is
like
your
this part and
stop.
I want to
Get
get rid
off.
of this part. That
Yes.
part's a part of you. But
Yeah.
it's about saying, okay, you can have a voice. I hear your fear. I hear this belief, but I'm going to take over driving right now. We'll be okay.
Yeah, that makes sense. And it's probably a smaller step than just throwing it completely off the bus and, and easier to kind of handle and manage thinking about it and just, move over and have the other part of you help motivate you and move you forward.
Right. I mean, the thing is, you can't throw it out the bus. That's
Mhm.
the thing, is that the more we push a part of us down or a voice down that we don't like and we don't want to hear and we don't want to acknowledge and makes us feel bad, the louder it has to speak.
Wow.
Right. So if we can acknowledge, okay, this is a part of me, this is going to be with me, I'm going to acknowledge it, let it have a voice. Doesn't mean I have to do what it's saying. It doesn't mean I have to believe what it believes. I can have a conversation. I can enter into conversation with it and say, it's going to be okay. I know you're afraid. I know you're trying to protect me, but we're going to be okay. You just sit here, buckle in, and I'm going to be with you. I'm going to take care of, because that way, that voice doesn't have to speak up as often or as loud because it
Mm.
feels heard, just like us. We all want to feel heard, right? Right.
Yes, we do. Each and
Yeah.
every one of us, big, small,
Yeah,
we want to get heard.
exactly. Yeah. It's true.
And so it's difficult to thrive after a setback, whether it's relationships or financial blow. Do you
Mm.
have any specific advice for people who are struggling to get back on their feet in that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does go back to maintaining your practices, whatever they are, or developing some new ones, making sure you have a strong support system. I think that sometimes when we have a big setback, there's a lot of shame involved.
Ah,
And when that happens, we don't really want to reach out to people.
hmm,
But the thing about shame is that it thrives in the dark. So that's what it's counting on, that you're not going to tell anybody and it can grow and grow and grow, right? Because
hmm,
you're not. But the minute you air it, the minute you show it the light, the minute you start talking about it, it has less of a hold on you and it has less of a charge. So I would say, rely on your support system, talk to people. And maybe you want to talk to a therapist or a coach, because sometimes your family and friends can be really helpful. And sometimes it's just so painful for them to see you in pain that they
mhm,
just want to fix your problem.
mm,
So they may be offering all kinds of advice that doesn't really resonate for you. If that's the case and it's not really that helpful, then you may want to choose somebody from the outside who can be with you in a different way.
That makes sense. That's important to just somebody not part of the situation or who understands somebody like a third party.
Right, a third party who can really ask you the maybe the difficult questions and really listen to you, who isn't focused on minimizing their own pain by fixing your pain, right?
Yeah, with no one, someone without emotional ties to the situation.
Exactly.
Mm.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
long, yeah.
Well,
Mm.
the other thing I was gonna say is that I think if you can access the part of yourself, your intuition about how things will be, about understanding that this is just one small moment and
Mm.
you will make it to the other side of it. And you don't know what's on the other side of it, but something better is on the other side of it, because you are going through these really difficult growing pains to grow into the person you need to be to inhabit that bigger you, right?
Mm.
If you can hold on to that trust or keep reminding yourself and bringing back to yourself that it will be okay. It will be
Mm.
better than okay, that this is happening for you. It's not happening to you. It's happening for you, even though it feels like it's happening to you in the moment. I think that is helpful to hold on to.
That's great to take someone kind of out of the moment and so to speak, give them long-term vision. Do you have any tips to help someone think about the future and how to develop and improve and come on the other side of that change?
Yeah, I mean, I think visioning is really important. Something that some people love, this is not my favorite activity for myself, but some people love vision boards, making vision
Mm,
boards. It's creative. It's a sort of a way to sort of bypass the thinking brain and access your subconscious and make a vision board that you then hang up and you look at every day and you envision your new life every single day. Or just writing about it. What am I grateful for in my life now? Because let's not forget that, right? There are things that are
yeah.
going well that you love about your life. Like, and even if it's like, I had an amazing meal yesterday, or I grew a tomato, and it's right, like, or whatever it is, something small. Find your gratitude and envision where you want to go, so that and this is a little bit of a challenge for me too sometimes. Like, what do I want to move toward? Not what am I moving away from,
Mm,
right? How can I keep envisioning what I want, why I want it, how I'm going to feel when I get there? Because the feeling is what we're going for, right? Like the
yes.
peace of mind, the security, the love, the whatever it is, right? How can I envision that, imagine myself in it, feel it?
Mm.
Because if we're talking about what I don't want and what I want to move away from, the focus is on the negative.
Ah,
So,
yeah.
as much as you can, focus on moving toward the positive thing that you want.
Changing their perspective. That's
Mhm.
amazing. Wow. Good point. And so tell me, Deborah, what's the best thing about your coaching work? Why do you do what you do? Why do you love it?
I do love it. It feels like when I finally found it and started, it felt like it was such a perfect match for me. Human connection is so important to me. I love connecting with people. I love learning about other people. I love helping people. And the fact that I went through such a difficult time without this shows me that there's a need for this, which is
Mm,
so satisfying and
mm,
fulfilling. And when I see that, people come to realizations about themselves, or they're able to move forward in their lives in a way that they weren't able to do before, it is so satisfying.
mm. Wow, thank you so much. And personally, like I met Deborah in a networking group and we became friends and she's definitely a very caring and kind person and definitely a great friend to have in my wheelhouse of friends. Thank you so
Oh,
much, Deborah, for being on the
thank
podcast.
you so much. This was so much fun. I love talking to you.
Yes, and if anyone's looking for this episode of the podcast or many more, you can go to mobilityhealthpt.com. Thank you.
That's all for this episode. May this discussion full of actionable tips and valuable advice guide you towards better possibilities in your personal and professional life. Continue your journey of unlocking your fullest potential by listening to more episodes of the podcast at mobilityhealthpt.com. Achieving stronger relationships, securing a thriving career, and embracing a healthier lifestyle may be daunting at first, but it is not impossible. You have the power to unleash the best version of you today. Until next time.